racism. You're reducing racism by just saying, well, all racism's bad. You're not actually
Well,
providing nuance to the conversation
well,
because you're just defaultly saying it's bad.
I did provide
There's no
nuance.
nuance there. That's like me saying
I did
genocide
provide.
bad, uwu. It's the same.
No,
You're basically you're doing that. You're unironically saying racism bad, uwu. I can't. I'm not. I don't think I need to tone police people. It's not my
I don't,
decision to tone police
I
people.
don't think that's tone policing.
That is
Like
tone policing. Some people need that. Some people need that catharsis because they've
racism.
gone through shit. It's not racism. If someone says white people suck and they're a person of color, they need to use that phrase for catharsis. It's not them being racist.
I do not believe they need that for catharsis.
I'm sorry. That's where we disagree then. I don't care if they I do not fucking care. If they need that for catharsis, I'm gonna let them have it.
I mean, I just don't think
I don't think
I
it's
just
racist.
do not think
I do
well,
not think it's racist or
didn't
sexist
we
to
agree
say.
that that it is racism, but it's on different levels? Are
That's
you saying
not
that it's not racism now?
that specific phrase is not racist. I'm not
That's
going to
not
have that
racist?
conversation. No, it is not.
Okay. If you say so.
The hyperbolic phrase of just saying I hate white people is not racist. I'm not going there. That's ridiculous.
Okay. Yeah, but I think I can have that conversation. But I think it goes both ways where we could start to tamp this down in our communities. Me personally, I don't think that should be accepted. I think I think if that's what you
Well, I'm
need, then you well, I think
if
if
you know
that's what you
anything
need
about
to feel better, then I don't think that you should be
but
here.
if you need if you wanna if but if you're never gonna get rid of that, dude. I'm sorry.
You're not gonna
Like,
get rid of
you're
racism or
no,
sexism?
you're never gonna get rid of the hyperbolic "I hate all men" or "all white people suck." You're just never gonna get rid of that.
I
I'm
think we
sorry.
can if we try. We're leftists.
I
We
disagree.
completely
You
change
I
our way of
completely
being, the way
no.
we speak, the way
I
we think.
completely disagree. If you've ever been in, like, radical left circles, you're never gonna get that. You're never gonna get those slogans out, unfortunately. That's
Would
something that we're just gonna have to work with, and it sucks.
would you
Like,
agree
that's
with
the
this with,
unfortunate
like, the
truth.
R slur or something? Like the R word?
What do you mean?
Well, my thing is, you're just not gonna get that out, so we just accept that we're not going to? Do you at least
No,
agree that we should strive to have it, but you're saying that we just won't get there?
I like, changing hearts and minds is not always the most effective measure. Like, you're gonna have half people saying basically, you're sa half the people are gonna like, half of the there's gonna be a group of people that's gonna be changing hearts and minds, there's gonna be another group of people that's gonna be doing it another way, and that's generally what always happens. I highly doubt you're going to convince a large section of radical leftists who organize, especially today, to not drop, like, some of the hyperbolic language. Like, it's kind of a dream. Like, I've thought about this a lot because I was one of those people that was very much against these phrases, and now after, doing things, I've just kind of given up on that. It's very much a lost cause, and
That's
I think we
awful.
can y okay, you think it's awful, it's fine. Like, I don't think we can do anything to change it in the near future.
End of this. We've also got Shark and Mel, like, I just want to put this out to you. Okay, so it sounds like Shark wants to come on and talk to you. You agreed to come on and talk to me, so I don't want to, like, kind of, and also it's getting late, so if you need to check out, that's cool. Do you
What does this
like?
person wanna talk to me about? Sure, let's just
I
do it, buddy.
think okay.
I
So
don't really
Shark,
care.
you had a concern about Mel's was it definition of white, or not definition, but like thoughts on whiteness. It was something about whiteness. So that actually works for me. Oh, thank you, everybody. Thank you. That actually works for me because I need to take a quick break as my chat is reminding me to
Oh, yeah,
refill my
drink the
teacup
water.
and drink some water and actually take care of myself. So yeah, maybe we can bring Shark on, and if you don't mind, I mean, I'm not trying to force any interaction
I
that
don't
you're
know if they're
not
gonna
like, because you've had a lot of
ask me,
you've had a
so I
lot
don't
to
really
do
care.
to. Sorry.
I don't care. I don't know what they're gonna ask me. So again, like I'll just
Okay,
this
well,
is always my
play it by ear.
policy. If
It's
someone wants to talk to me,
no, like you've been very generous with your time so far. So like
I don't
whatever you
really
want to do.
care.
But like I'll bring them
Yeah,
on as long as we're not trying to help like blow anybody up. But I think that I mean like Shark's a friend of mine. I'm thinking they just want to have
yeah,
a
sure.
conversation. Okay, so how do I do this? Okay,
I
Add a
don't know.
friend there. Okay. You need to be for. Oh wait, I guess I need to send you a friend request to make this work.
Who, me?
Yeah, so that we can add.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think I can't
definitely.
add somebody else to the call unless. Oh, I can see why. If you're talking to somebody that you're not like don't know that well, then like they could just bring in a whole bunch of people into the call and be. I don't know. I don't know. It did Discord. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna add Sharp. Have you two talked before or?
I made.
But the little dudes. Oh my god. Okay, that did something weird.
Little dudes.
Can you both hear me? I think it yeeted you for a second, Mel, when I added Shark, but you should be
Hello?
back. Hello, Shark.
Hey, what's
Woo.
going on? Do I sound okay?
Yeah, no, you sound great. What?
Everyone
Wow,
sounds.
your
Everyone
mic's
sounds
better than
fine.
mine for sure. I sound like I'm at a tin can right now. I feel like. So yeah, like I said, I do need to take a break and get some water. But you said you had a something that you wanted to talk to Mel about. So did you wanna did you two wanna talk? I need to get water anyway, so this will give me a.
I don't really care. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Sure. I find it funny. Irene was like, "Have you guys talked before?" She was the one who put us on a panel
Oh
together.
my god,
Um,
that's true. I
that's
now
I
true.
don't
remember.
fucking, dude. I don't
Never
remember, dude.
forget.
I don't remember half the shit that I do, dog.
Never forget.
Irene,
Okay.
I had an abusive childhood too. Like, what do you want? I don't want to compare everyone's oppression. This isn't the oppression Olympics.
But that's exactly what you're doing, and you fucking always do this. This is your debate tactic. This is your shitty debate bro thing, okay? And just because it
My
comes from a
shitty-
different perspective doesn't make it any less shitty. It's still disingenuous.
Can we take a step back here?
Wow, that's really fucked of you to say, Irene.
I don't think it
Yeah,
was any
so
spicier than what you
can I-
said about me.
I live the
So-
drama.
You lit-
It's okay. I'm a very sentimental person.
Hell yeah.
I remember a lot. It's weird. I actually have a lot of the notes. Actually, we don't have to get into that. Anyways, no, I had one criticism. Now, when I hear you talk about like whiteness in particular, I feel like the vibes that I'm getting from it are weird. So I want to talk to you about that
sure, go ahead.
for a moment. So I do remember. Now you may not remember this, like you said, but I do remember when we were on the panel with Merrick. She was bringing up something about her experiences being harassed online.
Sure.
I feel like
Oh yeah, I remember this. I remember this. I remember this conversation. Oh yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
feel like
yeah.
I do feel like you whether willingly or not or knowingly or not, I do feel like sometimes when some people, especially when they're white, well exclusively when because we're talking about whiteness here, I feel like you may deflect from their lived experiences if they present as white. I think that happens sometimes from what
No,
I've seen
never.
so far.
Okay, so let me say my side. This is just factually true, and this is the hard fucking truth. And like you, if you want to disagree with me, you can totally disagree with me. But this is it. If you're white, it overwhelmingly outweighs any other intersection that you have. It doesn't remove your lived experience or struggle, but if you basically take any white person with any marginalization and you paint color over them, they are definitely going to be in a way worse place than if they were white, and that's just it. That's all my take is. It's not to say that Merrick doesn't receive harassment. It's that she constantly was always saying like how, I got harassed. It's like, but we all get harassment as women. So it's not that I was trying to like say that like what she wasn't experiencing wasn't invalid or not good to talk about, but the way she presented it was very much just like, well, I've suffered because of this, this, and this, and it just felt very like it just felt very like condescending because I had to sit there and basically say like there are so many places and things that I don't have access to, like because I'm a trans person of color that Merrick has access to. Like Merrick doesn't have to worry about getting harassed in a bathroom by cis women. Like Merrick might get in a scuffle with another girl in a bathroom if someone, if she bumps into somebody, but she doesn't get stared at. She doesn't get accused of not being there. That's just something that she'll fundamentally never get to experience. And so it doesn't minimize like her pain or anything that she's going through, but it feels frustrating when she centers the conversation incredibly so like on herself, and she very much was like kind of like taking up the room and just sort of like basically saying, well, because I have like 28K followers on Twitter, and it's like, but like she's like, I got harassed on. It's like, but girl, you got 25, you got like 26K followers on Twitter. Like, you gotta know that this shit happens. And like, even if you get bullshit because you're white and you're decently attractive and you have a good speaking voice and you're pretty personable, you're gonna weather a lot of stuff that, like, if it was someone like me or anyone else, that there's just a lot of shit that you're not gonna get. And that's just it. It's the same thing. Like, if she's not gonna get the same kind of shit as, say, like a black woman. And that's just the truth. It's not to say that all of her experiences are null and void. It's just there are just some things that some people can't experience, and that I just want people to make sure that they have those in the back of their mind when they're in a room with people of color. Simple as that. That's it. And I don't think she thinks about those things. It was the same thing about like when she made that tweet about the sex workers and stuff, and like I mean, like when she plugged her OnlyFans on the end of a bunch of marginalized, you know, people in India, when actual sex workers from India were telling her it was kind of tone deaf and maybe you should rethink posting that kind of stuff. No one was trying to cancel her. No one was trying to say that you're a bad person. They were just saying, "Hey, this seems kind of, weird, man. Why would you do that? Like, it seems a little insensitive. Don't do that ever again, and we're kosher." And she had a knee-jerk reaction. She freaked out and she got defensive, and that's why people got upset and aggressive. Like, that's always been my issue with race when talking to white folks or talking to cis people. It's if you have a knee-jerk reaction to like a statement or something that somebody says, that says more about you than about them, right? Like, if a black person tells me that I'm exhibiting anti-blackness, or if I say something that's a little out of line, it's my job to listen and own up to it. That's everyone's job when we look at marginalization. It's and privilege. That's it. That's the take.
Okay.
I don't think that's controversial.
Okay. So one thing is near the beginning when you were talking, you did say that Merrick talked about the abuse that she got online, and then your response there was, "Well, we all get abuse online." Where I can agree with that, but do you not feel like that's like
No, because
minimizing?
she's a white woman sitting, like, she's a white woman while a trans person of color is in the room. And she's expecting me to somehow feel bad for her, and I'm not going to feel any more bad for her than I would feel by anybody else. Abuse is abuse. Like, and we should all work together to fix it. So I'm not going to like go, ooh woo honey, like, feel bad, like, because I do feel bad, but I don't need to, like, I don't need to give her that. I don't owe her that. I've got, like, I get my own, kind of abuse. I'm not here to I wanna know how to fix things and make things better. I don't wanna sit here and oppression Olympics ourselves, and never want, and like, this is the thing, like, I didn't want to center my transness or center the fact that I am of color in that conversation because I didn't think that it was necessary, but when she started, like, getting, like, really emotional about how, like, she, like, goes through all this stuff every day and that she's so upset, and it's like, but she's never been of color. She's not trans. It's like, it made me feel uncomfortable, I guess, to, like, I just assumed maybe she would have more respect to just be like, "Hey, we've all been through this. We've all been through this together. Like, we should talk about this productively." But she didn't. She kept, like, going on about how bad, about, like, we like, she, like, I felt like I was being put in a position where I was supposed to feel bad for her. And I do feel bad for her, but I shouldn't, like, have to, like, I shouldn't have to physically, like, be like, "Oh, honey, it's gonna be okay." Like, I can do that in DM. I can do that in private. I don't wanna do that in a public forum where we're trying to actually discuss issues. It's not helpful for the conversation. The conversation was about like why women go through this kind of stuff, why talking about abuse and harassment in communities is important, and like steps and solutions, not just all of us just sitting in a room like passing around the oppression cup, because it's not helpful when when the goal of that conversation is progress. Like we all know that like we're marginalized in some sort of way. Like when it's you and me and Irene, like we
But the
all
little
we all
dudes
have
come
been through
up,
that
and
shit.
like I just
You know,
naturally am
like
like little
pretty sure you get
dudes.
shit as a black person. So like we all go through these things. It's really it's just not always good to like to like what's a good way to say this? It's not always good to like stew in the sadness, you know? Like I kind of know like it's like reading the room, right? Like if these are the people that are in the room in this panel, then we all should kind of like, know that like we've been through some shit. Let's be a little bit light about it. Let's not dwell in the bad stuff so much. Let's kind of let's really get into that solidarity and have a good, positive, healthy conversation about this. Not
Um,
a
can I stop you for a
like a
second?
yeah.
So a couple of things. Um, well, first, it did make me uncomfortable when you were like, "Oh, she went on about her sadness, but we all go through something." And I understand that marginalized people have a very specific sort of a relationship to this country, but how we all experience abuse is incredibly different for everyone. I don't think just because she's not marginalized in the sense that of her like ethnicity or race. But I do feel as you were talking still that you were minimizing it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know
I
if
don't
you
think
don't.
I do not think I was, and like I'm sorry if you feel that way, but I like again, she needs to learn how to read a room. I am not here to sit in a room and listen to a white woman, regardless of whatever her struggles are, basically say go on a diatribe about how she feels bad about something. Like
Well, does
we
that
all
not sound
go.
like minimization to you?
It's not minimization when we should like if you are a marginalized person, if you're a sex worker, if you're someone that has gone through hard shit, you just kind of know that we're all going through the thing. It's not helpful to like it's not useful to constantly bounce off what happened to me, what happened to you, what happened to this. It's not always like it doesn't lend to positive conversation when we're just constantly trying to find, who's had it worse
Well,
because
I'm not sure if that was her goal.
because the level of shit that she got was in volume higher than the things that most of us experience.
Hmm.
But there are boundaries to how we can have this conversation.
Okay, so I'm guessing. So and you can correct me, but you're saying that you didn't want to be in a room with a white person
I never
complaining
said
about
I didn't
the
want to be in a room. I
wait,
said
wait, wait,
it's
wait,
it's
wait.
been
I didn't get to finish. I
uncomfortable.
did not get to finish.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. But so you were uncomfortable with you as a person of color, a marginalized person because of your race and or ethnicity. And me too. I would imagine you were worrying about me too. Um, because she was complaining about like experience with harassment that she got while she obviously has privilege still from her race. Um, so you're like, oh, we all sort of go through this. So I'm guessing you're not. So I guess I mean you're not minimizing it, but you're saying that other people's struggle is bigger. So have some like context because you feel like I mean, okay. So for me personally, right, when I care about people's problems, when like black people say that their problems that they have are like people in the Asian community or Hispanic community or things along these lines. I usually care about their perspective and their words on it because they're right there. We all experience these sorts of things extremely individually. So I feel like, and knowing how lots of really small things can build up, it's always good to have perspective. And I think that Mel does have perspective on how her being white grants her privileges that either of us probably cannot reach
Yeah.
that way, and that's fine. But to just randomly bring up how other people have it worse than her, I guess that's you were going through in your head. So I guess I now know where your mind space was. But I do feel like it's still I feel like it's shitty. To just be like, hey, bro, you're white. What the fuck are you complaining for? I guess. I mean, these things they're
No, that's
really
not the argument.
individual.
That's such a reductive way to put that. Like
Oh
whiteness
sure. Correct me, please.
overwhelmingly, but like whiteness overwhelmingly impacts every single part of marginalization. That's just a fucking fact. You can't say that it's not a fact. Even if she's a sex worker, if you're a sex worker and you're black or trans, your life is horrendously more difficult with access to care and the ways and means in which you do things. It's not even remotely comparable. I have a lot of respect for the shit that Merrick has gone through. I have even said this numerous times. I don't think she deserved half of the bullshit that she has gotten. My issue with Merrick is that when people have legitimately tried to give her good faith criticisms, she freaks out, has a knee jerk reaction, thinks everyone hates her, and then she cancels, she deletes a post or deactivates, and then all of those marginalized people that are trying to like say, hey, I get what you're saying here, and I understand you're going through some shit, but can you like think about this perspective as well? And we can form a bridge. And those comments never get seen because, people are shitty. And so like that is a response to that. And I'm not trying to say that she's not allowed to feel those feelings. And I understand that, emotionally, she probably has gone through some shit. And I'm not saying that she is not allowed to have those feelings, but we weren't having a therapy conversation. We were having a conversation about how we deal with harassment in a positive way. And so it's just annoying to sit in a room where a bunch of people are just saying, it's just passing the baton around and saying, this is how I'm marginalized, and this is how I'm marginalized. It just feels very liberal and like kind of just like that's liberal impulse shit to just, say what you go through, but then not kind of there was no solidarity in that conversation. Because every single time Merrick would talk about her perspective, it was always about her. It was always, I went through this. She used a lot of I statements. She never at once like said, you know, she never once referred to me saying, like, Mel's trans. Like, she only said, like, I will never go what you go through when I kind of snapped at her because she just kept saying, well, this is what I'm going through. And it was just frustrating to me because I hate when I know that I get a lot of shit for being who I am, and I don't always like to talk about it because I see it and I feel it every day. I don't always want to relive that trauma. I don't always want to relive my own trauma. I like really love wanting to find the solutions to bridge that stuff together. And so when it just becomes a therapy session, it just doesn't feel like it just doesn't feel productive, and it just feels like
Sure. I
we're
mean,
all just
I get that.
stewing in this stuff. And it feels disingenuous to all of us. It's not just that I was mad at her. It just it kills it for all of us together. Because then we can't actually have a conversation because now we have to take time out of something productive to kind of therapy everything out. And if that's what Merrick wanted, she should have said that. She should have been like, "Hey, can I talk about my whole thing? And can we like have a productive conversation about like maybe what things I could have done better or what I did worse?" But that didn't happen.
Um, sure. I mean, I guess I mean, I can see your point. For me personally, I think when we're having those sorts of discussions, I think it's important to hear what other people have gone through. If we're talking about how to fix problems, we have to know, especially what it feels like to be on both sides, someone who hops in and starts dunking on
Yeah.
someone and what it feels like to be on the inside. I would have no problem if everyone talked about things that they've um personally gone through. And you said there's no solidarity. I really feel like we could have built some solidarity there.
I
Speaking
wanted
of,
that, but it just
here,
didn't
one
happen.
second, please. Um, so like, um, when when you were talking earlier to Irene, you said that just like calling these people that you may speak to like racist or whatever, is not beneficial. Is that right?
Yeah, and but that was very specific to the context of like what was going on, because like people were surprised, people were wondering why I didn't like just like call Vaush racist. or like, just like say it right out. And in the middle of that conversation, I was like, that wouldn't have helped. He obviously like wasn't listening to anything that I had to say, so calling him a bigot would just, like having a knee-jerk reaction like doesn't help anything.
Sure.
I'm a firm believer that if you knee-jerk a reaction, like you're not actually listening. You're letting your not I'm not saying you're letting your emotions or anything like that, but you're letting your biases to a word that frustrates you like kick in, and that bias like goes over you, like the actual like thought that you probably should have, took 30 seconds to be like, okay, I need to listen. Because like when you have a knee-jerk reaction like that, it shows that you're not listening. It just shows that you're more interested in like you're ready, you're prepping your statement in your head. You're like, I know what I'm gonna say. I know what I'm gonna say. It's like you're sticking to a script. And so I could have like been like, I'm upset by this. This bothers me. I could have been like, dude, you're kind of being a bigot here because you're kind of like the way you're comparing like people in Asia is kind of a little like it's not that it could be a little racist and maybe a little angsty. And I just didn't feel that that was like the move there. I didn't feel like it was
Sure.
useful in that conversation.
Sure. So don't you think that you would hold that same argument for people in that sort of situation? Even though, well, like Merrick's situation there. Let's say we're talking about problems and you felt as if this person was just using this time as a therapy session, as you sort of said, to
I
like kind
never
of
I never said
air
I
out.
like okay. Well, like I never felt like that was what it was. Like this is obviously all post hoc, right? So like
Okay.
obviously that's what I felt like afterwards. In that moment, I probably was maybe a little bit jumpy. But again,
Sure. So that's
like
all I'm saying is, don't you think that that would also apply to that situation, that was kind of like a knee jerk reaction? We could have had some
probably.
solidarity there where we were like, hey,
Yeah, but
I
like
mean,
again, like we're having a post hoc discussion. It happened.
yeah,
Like you asked me my opinion about it. Like probably, sure, we let's just for the sake of argument, sure, maybe it was a little knee jerky. Like, what do you want from me? Like, is this like
Whoa. Okay. Hi. I'm here, but like, wait, what happened to Mel? Is
I think maybe her internet cut.
Oh damn. Okay.
I'm not sure. I kicked her with my
Yes, your psychic
Negro powers.
powers.
Yeah. No, we were. I'm not sure how much of that
Oh,
conversation
I
you kind
heard
of
it.
caught.
I heard it all. It was actually, yeah, like a good, conversation. I mean, like, it's um
So I kind of have. I have a different. I've gone through this argument with Lady Rain. If you've spoken to them before.
mhm.
So Lady Rain kind of has the similar idea that Mel has, and I personally, I patently reject it. I hold marginalized communities to the same standard. I don't think that just because Shark, what have you done? Hey, listen, for me personally, I enjoy letting people talk, because more time that you, especially if you're one really interesting thing is if you're talking to someone and they pause for a moment, they're expecting you to say something. If you don't say anything, more likely than not they'll keep talking. You can get a lot of information out of people like that.
That's true.
um you can get a lot of so I honestly don't like it when people start interrupting a lot of people in debates, because a lot of the times, I'm not saying this is not necessarily here, but a lot of the times people can talk themselves into a hole.
Yeah.
You never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. But I
That's
like to
true.
listen. I like to listen to people anyways.
Unless you want to
But
unless you want to, like, I don't know, dunk on like CTV, then that all bets are off with CTV. That's
CTV
okay.
is an
That's
interesting
okay.
character.
That's okay.
Did I tell you about the talk that I had with him, where he said that we need to colonize all of my bad, make every country in Africa a state, and then introduce like nuclear power plants to like every 5 miles in the Sahara Desert, so they can desalinate ocean water and then undesert the Sahara Desert.
That's like a moon. What's his name? Moon Lord. You know Moon Lord?
Uh,
did the call
Oh,
die?
definitely.
I don't even remember what I was saying.
You're
I think you
back.
left.
Oh, I don't even remember what I was saying.
You were we were talking about um oh shoot. Oh no, I just lost it too. Oh, that yikes.
Oh, I'm so bad
Um
at this. Holy shit.
awful debate, bro. Me
You're
personally.
the worst debate, bro.
Is debate, bro? Is that gender neutral, or is that not gender neutral? What do you
I
think?
don't
It
fucking
depends on
care,
who you're
dude.
talking to, right?
Sure.
I
Because
used to.
I
I
used to
have a
do.
lot of go ahead.
I don't really care. Like whatever. It's like I think bro is one of those words that I think is not necessarily gender neutral. I think it depends on like how people like want it to be presented. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it's
I think trying
weird.
I just we need to stop.
It's like,
We need to
dude,
stop. We need to stop. We need to stop like gender essentializing every word because trans people exist. Like, if people don't care, they don't care. If a trans person says, "Hey, don't call me bro," then just don't ever call them bro. And if a trans person says they don't care, then you don't care with them. And if you're in a room with a bunch of people you don't know, then don't use gender specific words. I don't know. Just that's always been my
sure.
like prescription.
Sure. We were talking a little bit in the break. So I was mentioning that when it comes to marginalized people, even though I understand their struggle and well, I am one. I'm one of them.
Yeah,
You know,
we know you're one of them. You're one of those people, aren't
they
you?
very visible minority here.
Very visible.
Um, yeah, I had to. We were, gosh, we were watching Arya Scarcella earlier, and she said,
Jeez.
black
I
people don't have
don't
to
care
come
about
out as black. I was like, yeah, I come out as black when I
I
walk
mean,
outside.
yeah, they do,
Um,
dog. Like, what do you mean? They have to have you seen like walking while black, picnicking while black, in a national park while black, surfing while black? There are so many black people that just can't do things normal because they're black.
oh
Is
no.
Ariel okay?
Um, yeah, she's an interesting
She's like
character.
never okay, dude. Like I feel
Absolutely
so bad
never.
that y'all roast her so much because she's just such a fucking idiot. I wish you guys would stop giving her fucking
She
attention.
she just misses her lesbians. We lost another lesbians, guys.
You know what? You know what? I have hung out with more cis lesbians as a trans woman, so I have no idea why she thinks trans women are taking away lesbians, because boy, they
I
exist
think
and they're
it's
fun.
her thing is trans men and non-binary people are taking away lesbians or something along those lines. But they're lost and they're gone, never to be seen again. But we were talking about marginalized people. How I completely understand that. But for me personally, I like to hold people to near the same standards when I think of things like discrimination. Personally, my worldview is if there's discrimination against one person, you can justify it against all people. If that bug is still there as the opportunity to infect other people, and it's also not useful when talking to these people and trying to humanize with them and talk to them. So me personally, okay, I had this talk with Lady Rain. If you've made their acquaintance before,
Oh
nice
yeah,
person.
I do know of her.
Yeah, nice person. But I disagreed on this point. That's where marginalized people, I don't allow them to be racist. And I understand like some people have the prejudice plus power. Me personally, if you're like racially discriminatory, if you're doing that, you're racist. Period. And it's bad.
Can I give you my
Now it's
viewpoint on
not
race?
equally bad, but they're both bad.
That's fair. Did I ever tell you like my viewpoint on race?
No.
Like racism, I guess, in this context?
Hit me.
Okay, so I told this with Irene earlier because she asked me about like what I felt about like race, I guess. Like my idea, so like I don't think trans people are transphobic in the way that like cis people are transphobic. And I don't think that like black folks being like racist to other black folks is like racist in the same sense. And like you can disagree or like ask me if like for follow up, I guess, and we can sort of go back and forth 'cause I am curious. So when I think of trans, so like when someone calls another trans person transphobic, like if another trans person is being transphobic, I don't necessarily think they're being transphobic in the like cis to trans sense. It's more like internalized transphobia and like projection. A lot of trans people, like when they haven't unpacked or worked through a lot of their biases and sort of like issues when they transition, they can have like internalized transphobia that can come out as like attacks as on other trans people. So like when like early transitioning people like get mocked by trans people that pass or whatever, and like there's like that cattiness that happens. A lot of that's just internalized transphobia because really, like, you shouldn't judge anybody's transness. That's just our community just doesn't do that, but there are people that like to gatekeep and enforce how people transition or what drugs people use, and it's pretty disgusting and it's classist and ableist, and it's really just internal work that people need to do. I would say that I would give that same extension to like racism within minorities. So when I say that minorities can't be racist to other minorities, it's not they can't be racist to other races in the sense that white people are. So like the way white people are racist to like non-white people is a very specific kind of racism. But like when black folks or Asian folks that like have more status and privilege and money over like say like black people that are still like in poverty, there's this sort of like separation like, these are the good Asians, these are the good black people, these are the good Latin people. These are the ones that, made it, they live the American dream, and these are the ones that are like left behind. It's because they didn't fall into the steps of American success or whatever. That is its own, kind of ableism and classism and racism. And it's more of an internalized, like you're internalizing your own adjacentness to whiteness, and you're like projecting your insecurities onto other people. And so I don't like to say that's why I get frustrated when people say like all racism is like the same and all transphobia is the same when it's not. It really depends on the power dynamic of the groups that are involved. Um, is Do you understand what I'm gonna getting at there?
Oh no, I understand it. My thing is, I can under those sorts of analysis are good when you're tackling that racism, that transphobia, that homophobia with the person individually. When I'm criticizing someone for their held positions, that's not as important because
Yeah, sure.
whether or not where the racism, sexism, whatever comes from, they could be possessed by the same demon in Kirby that possesses King Dedede and makes him all evil. The words coming out of their mouth, the ideas that they're exclaiming, still plays into white supremacy or like cis hegemony or one of those things or patriarchy. It still plays
Yeah.
into the same systems and it hurts the same people in the same way. And also, I think individually on an individual level, I think it could be worse. Because those people are easily weaponized and give credence to the other people who, they may
Yeah.
politically align on just the words that they say. So I understand that, but for me, it just does not seem as important.
I don't think it's not important. I just think that we need to have those distinctions. That was my argument. I wasn't trying to say that like one is more important or less important than the other because I do think both of them are important. I think that everyone needs to make those distinctions so that we can have a because the conversation about like so if a black person is like being like a black or white or Asian or Latin person is being like broadly like phobic or racist towards like a group of people or they have like a really hard bias, it is completely okay to like call them out on those things and use those words, I guess. But I do think it's useful to note the reaction is going to be like different like the conversation is going to be wildly different as opposed to tackling it on an individual basis. And I think a lot of people like to conflate all of these things as the same when they're not the same. I'm not trying to say that like one of these situations is more important or less important, but I do think that like I think anybody can like sort of fall in the folly of over generalizing um like the words and just using them as catch-alls when the situations actually individually as opposed to like a group mentality are the dynamics that they're just different dynamics. So that's really it. Like I think we agree there. I don't think I
Um,
disagree with you.
for the most part, it seems so.
Yeah,
One
fine.
thing was that earlier you were like, I wanna make sure that I had that
You're
right.
fine.
It was like it was about like marginalized people when oh, it was that so when these people they have like some sort of snap reaction when they have someone in. For me personally, I feel like this is really bad. For me personally, I really hate the thing where people are like, where even they meme about. I think it's like actually extremely problematic when they're like, oh yeah, we hate white men, we hate cis men, we hate this, that, and the third. Even though it's a joke, I don't think that it's good. I don't think it's conducive. And for me personally, it's in the activism that I engage in my interpersonal life, it's actually been incredibly detrimental when talking to
I
people.
I
But
don't
one
I
thing, sure,
okay.
we can touch on that. But one thing is that when these people are in these groups, right? I feel like we should all hold ourselves to better standards, and I think that if you like you said earlier, you're like if you're not emotionally capable of having these sorts of discussions. I don't believe that every marginalized person should be like a guru and should know how to and be like ContraPoint to be able to talk about all of these points and the intersectionality and whatever. You're just a human being. You were born here. You're born like that. You don't have you should have no expectation to just start to become like a savant on this. But I think if you are not, then you should remove yourself from some of these places. Or at least stop being as vocal. That's what I think.
Um, I guess I really don't have like an opinion on this actually. Like, I mean, like if people want to walk around and like, is this more like a civility kind of thing? Like, this is just something that you would rather have people do opposed to the other?
I think it's morally correct to do better. Like, still, I think that even though, like we talked about, how some racism is worse than other racism. Racism is still racism, and I still believe you if you can justify it against one person, you can justify it against other people as well. The same rationale would work both ways, and no matter what. So I think I think it would be morally correct to move in this route. I think it's just bad on every single level to continue this. I don't think it's permissible. I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's cute. In any way, shape, or form. And one thing, so okay, so at work, I talk to some of my like dude bro friends when we're at work. All right. These are the same exact dudes that you would imagine from like the 90s. Okay. Where you would be like, they use gay as a slur, they use like the F slur, they use like the R slur. This is just in their vocabulary, and they just do it,
Yeah.
and it's funny or whatever, right? They just do that. Now, when I want to talk to them about some of these things, right, especially when I want to bring up like feminism, because they have like the Joe Rogan approach where they see these problems with men.
Mm.
I love to talk about men's rights, and they're like, and I'm like, fuck, I got them. Okay, here we go with the feminism. It's gonna be great. And then they're like, and then I like tie it back to the word because I never opened with that, but so I tie it back to the word feminism, and they're like, yeah, I mean that's cool and all, but they hate men, and I'm like, bro, come on, they don't actually hate men, and then they pull up a tweet with 17,000 likes that's just the words I hate men and they're bad, and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to say to that?
Like, that's what they think? Like, they think you're gonna say that?
No, no, my response is how do I respond to someone like that after that? Because now they have this
Wait, how do
extremely
you re
go ahead.
you're asking how you respond after they say they hate men?
No, no, no. What I'm saying is they say feminists hate men, and my response
Oh,
would be
they
they
say
don't.
feminists hate men. Okay.
Yeah, and then they
Sorry.
can pull up like a like this massive tweet that's like, I hate men, or cis men are garbage, or they're trash. The
Well,
world would be
like,
better without them. And even though
the
I
thing that
understand, but it's so harmful. I
but
think so personally.
that's something that I guess that you have to be able to work with that, right? Like, it's not your burden to, like, um I don't feel like we should take that agency away from people that need that space to say those kinds of words. Um, the problem is like the agency can spill out into the field and like yeah, that can boil over and like it does make it harder, but it's also like not useful to tone police people because there's a lot of people that like if you tell them, "Hey, don't ever say that," they're just going to tell you to fuck off. Like that's just kind of how it is. I don't really have like I'm terrible. I've never really had a good answer to the whole like um to the whole like if someone says, you know, like all these people hate men or whatever, you know, and like how do you work with that? Well, I think you have to try and I feel like you just still have to have the conversation with them, like even if it's rough.
Yeah, but I think I can have that conversation. But I think it goes both ways where we could start to tamp this down in our communities. Me personally, I don't think that should be accepted. I think I think if that's what you
Well,
need, then you well, I think
if
if
you know
that's what you
anything
need
about
to feel better, then I don't think that you should be
but
here.
if you need if you wanna if but if you're but you're never gonna get rid of that dude, I'm sorry.
You're not gonna
Like,
get rid of
you're
racism? or
No,
sexism?
you're never gonna get rid of the hyperbolic "I hate all men" or "all white people suck." You're just never gonna get rid of that.
I
I'm
think we
sorry.
can if we try. We're leftists.
I
We
disagree.
completely
You
change our way of being, the way
no.
we speak, the way
I
we think.
completely disagree. If you've ever been in, like, radical left circles, you're never gonna get that. You're never gonna get those slogans out, unfortunately. That's
Would
something that we're just gonna have to work with, and it sucks.
would you
Like,
agree
that's
with
the
this with,
unfortunate
like, the
truth.
R slur or something? Like the R word?
What do you mean?
Well, my thing is, you're just not gonna get that out, so we just accept that we're not going to? Do you at least
No,
agree that we should strive to have it, but you're saying that we just won't get there?
I like changing hearts and minds is not always the most effective measure. Like you're gonna have half people saying basically half the people are gonna like half of the there's gonna be a group of people that's gonna be changing hearts and minds. There's gonna be another group of people that's gonna be doing it another way, and that's generally what always happens. I highly doubt you're going to convince a large section of radical leftists who organize, especially today, to not drop like some of the hyperbolic language. Like it's kind of a dream. Like, I've thought about this a lot because I was one of those people that was very much against these phrases, and now after, doing things, I've just kind of given up on that. It's very much a lost cause, and
That's
I think we
awful.
can okay, you think it's awful, it's fine. Like, I don't think we can do anything to change it in the near future. Like,
I'm
hearts
Oh
and
my
curious
minds
what you
have
two
gosh.
never been
think about.
effective. Like, just ask the US military. Like,
I'm curious what you two think about like I've noticed actually a lot of like cis white dudes that will kind of like announce their presence in a group by like sort of an acknowledgement of that, but it's like one of those acknowledgements that's like, oh, I'm just like, I'm actually a piece of shit because I'm a cis white dude, and they're not actually putting themselves down or anything like that, but it's like I don't know, it's sometimes
sometimes
like
I've
that
actually
like
talked to men. I've talked to men that like they just they hear it so often they're just like, well, and like I think the thing is you have to be empathetic. I think if someone feels that way, you can't approach it with, well, I don't know how to make you feel better, but like, okay, look, you had some people say some stuff. I'm gonna show you the right way to get here to this point. And a lot of it is putting in like emotional labor, and like the thing is no matter whether or not someone is going to be hyperbolic or whether someone is going to do it the way that you would do it, you're still going to have to put emotional labor into that person or into those people, and it's still going to be difficult no matter what. And so I don't necessarily think the hyperbolic phrase is like necessarily holding us back. I understand like the perspective of you like working with people and noticing it. So like when you physically like come across that as a barrier, like yeah, I can completely understand that perspective of like why you'd go, yeah, we probably should not have this. That makes perfect sense to me, and I don't disagree that like in a perfect world, I think I would love for us to like be able to have those conversations politely, but like unfortunately, a lot of white folks, regardless like of whether they have never heard the I hate men kind of or I hate group of people kind of stances, um, they still have knee-jerk reactions. Like even when you start explaining like basic feminism. Like I've had people that I've talked to like dudes about feminism and they've been like, "I'll listen to you talk." They're really receptive, and the minute I say something like, well, like, and we'll start talking about like, male suicide rates and like incels and like, hey, like things we can help. They do get kind of jumpy at certain things and phrases and words that are being said. Um, and like it's just it's really really dicey. I don't think there's I don't think the hearts and minds solution of eliminating those phrases will work any better than just keeping to say them because they're kind of both on the same coin. Like it's bad for us to just like say them and not provide any solutions. It's equally just as harmful to never have those phrases and just constantly baby people to get to those places because sometimes you can't baby people. Sometimes you have to be a little like you have to be a little rough to get people to see the contradictions that are in front of them. And so I really think that this kind of conversation is extremely like a case by case basis. That's just how I see it. At least in my experience. And like I said, this is my experience. So maybe it's because this is my opinion. Probably with this discussion right here is probably very, very, very impacted by the things that I've done in my life, and maybe yours is impacted by the things that you've done in your life. So maybe that's where impasse is. But I don't like disagree. Um, with completely, like, eliminating them or whatever. Like, I mean, if there was a way we could do that successfully and pivot that over, sure, but I just don't personally see it happening anytime soon with the way discourse has been going. I'm just not very optimistic towards that, but, like, it would be a cool goal. I don't see any harm in trying to work on that.
I don't know. Me personally, I just cannot take a softer stance on something like that. Maybe me, I don't know. With my history and everything, when I see like this, because here's a really interesting thing. I don't say this too often. Me personally, so here's my thing, all right? It sounds weird out of context, but personally,
Not
I
really.
don't care about like other groups of people, right? I do not I don't care to know about them. I don't care about them. They don't matter to me. They're not in my life, right? When all these sorts of things happen, like it does not affect me. The problem is when I see people hurting, that's what I care about, right? I would like to not have to talk about any of this because that means we're in like a perfect world. When I see these sorts of I don't think that being in a disadvantaged position means that you now have like carte blanche to start engaging in prejudice uh because you feel like it, because it makes you feel better. That just makes me incredibly uncomfortable to think about. um even if it doesn't manifest in a way that tangibly harms people,
Yeah.
I think just
I
fomenting those views
personally,
are
like,
still bad.
don't walk around and say, "I hate fucking men." Like, it's not something that I
You don't
do. Like,
have
I'm
to.
not one of those people. What?
You don't have to.
No, no, no. I'm not one of those. It's not that I don't have to. I'm letting you know, like, I am not one of those people that doesn't do it. And as someone who doesn't do it and someone who doesn't like that very often, I respect and understand why folks sometimes do it, you know? And like, I know consciously that I can, that I can't get rid of it. Like, it's just not, I don't see these kinds of things happening anytime soon. And I think that's just maybe where we disagree. I don't think it's a big disagreement. So,
I don't know. Okay. Just me personally, it makes me incredibly
yeah,
uncomfortable.
right. And
It
I think
actually
I think
it makes me very sad actually.
yeah.
Especially like hearing you be like, "Oh, I mean, the sexism, the racism, well, I mean, it's not like we're gonna fix it." I mean, that sounds like incredibly so defeatist to me.
No, I'm not saying we don't fix sexism and racism. I'm literally just saying the hyperbolic statement of saying I hate men or white people suck. It's just like
But the little
an
dudes come up
irrelevant,
and
like
like I just naturally am
that
like
the
little
context of
dudes.
arguing over whether those phrases are
The little
good or
dudes
bad
come
is
up and like
irrelevant
I just
to
naturally am
the
like little
emotional labor
dudes.
that we need to put in as people to make things better. That's not me saying I don't care about racism or sexism. Like,
No,
please
I
do
didn't
not
say you
conflate my
did. I know
arguments
I
with
didn't
that.
say you didn't care about racism or sexism. I'm
But
like, well, or just like in general, like generally, I think that you kind of don't care too much about it when it's in our own group.
no, I do. It just means that I can't do anything about those things. I can't I'm not I don't think I need to tone police people. It's not my
I don't
decision to tone police
I
people.
don't think that's tone policing.
That is
Like
tone policing. Some people need that. Some people need that catharsis because they've
racism,
gone through shit. It's not racism. If someone says white people suck and they're a person of color, they need to use that phrase for catharsis. It's not them being racist.
I do not believe they need that for catharsis.
I'm sorry. That's where we disagree then. I don't care if I do not fucking care. If they need it for if they need that for catharsis, I'm gonna let them have it.
I mean, I just don't think
I don't think
I
it's
just
racist.
do not think
I do
well,
not think it's racist or
didn't
sexist
we
to
agree
say
that that it is racism, but it's on different levels? Are
that's
you saying
not
that it's not racism now?
that specific phrase is not racist. I'm not
That's
going to
not
have that
racist?
conversation. No, it is not.
Okay. If you say so.
The hyperbolic phrase of just saying I hate white people is not racist. I'm not going there. That's ridiculous.
Okay. I guess if you say so. As I mean, it sounds just
And
pretty
if people
racist on
want
its
to
face to
disagree
me.
with me on that, that's completely fine. I'm completely okay with taking the L on this one, and for people not liking that take or whatever, it's fine. I do
Okay.
not care.
All
If
right.
you wanna use the catharsis phrase, go ahead and use it. If you don't wanna use it and you just wanna hate it forever and wanna get rid of it, then do the work to get rid of it in your spaces. It's just always going to exist. If you think just saying "fuck white people" is, like, racist or something, I don't know. I don't know why you think that's racist, because it's certainly not.
Um, okay, I
I
guess.
mean, I don't know. Just like it just seems like it just seems like a splitting hairs kind of thing because I don't think those phrases are at the same racial like oppression as all of the things that are happening right now. Like they're a drop in the bucket compared to the stuff that's going on currently.
Oh, okay.
It's not like when someone hyperbolically says when a person of color hyperbolically says like white people suck, I do not think they're being racist against white people. That's ridiculous. Like
Okay, if you say so.
I think that's ridiculous. Just we've gone through so much. We've gone through so much stuff as marginalized people. Like such a silly thing to like want to get rid of. That's just like some weird like moral grandstanding. I do not care about that. It's I just don't care. And it's fine. Like, you can tell in the comments, like, in the chat, like, people are saying it's racist. Like, I don't know, man, grow up. Like, not racist.
Um, I guess so. I mean, just on its face, it seems just as it reads, pretty racist to me.
It's
Um,
not racist. I don't care what you have to say on this one. I will 100% disagree with you. It's not racist.
okay.
And
Um,
if you guys want to tie any of this to like white supremacy or say that it's just doing MAGA shit or not, it's not. It's not racist.
okay. So, Irene, was there anything else that you think that we should hit on?
Oh, in terms of the Vaush conversation today, or just like the general goings on, yeah, I mean, so Mel, I just what you were trying to get at as far as it not being racist, what you meant was that it's not backed up by, systemic oppression.
Yeah, it's not
It's
backed up by any systemic oppression. It's literally just like people that have been gone, like people have gone through emotional trauma.
yeah.
There are some people of
So
color
you're
and some
acknowledging
trans
like a
folks.
bias there, maybe, but you're saying like the racism is like a whole nother thing where it's like it gets picked up by the wind of like, social hierarchy, for lack of a better term, or,
Yeah,
racial
exactly. It's not
hierarchy. That
it's like when trans people say like cis scum or whatever. It's like it's not that they're trying to say all cis people are canceled and they're bad and we should never trust them. It's just like the things that trans people go through, like it frustrates them. They get upset, you know?
yeah.
So it's just how they express pain sometimes. Do I think that's the best way to express pain? No, I don't think so. I don't think that is the like I personally wish that marginalized people didn't express their pain that way because there's no power dynamic. Like
Yeah.
I cannot be transphobic towards cis people. If I say cis people fucking suck and someone says I'm being like cisphobic or I hate cis people, then you can fuck off because there's no power dynamic. Like they have all the power. I am just
Yeah. And
voicing
because of that, it
my
doesn't
innate
actually help
frustration.
us. So yeah, you're not endorsing the tactic. You're like, and but
Yeah.
like you're also saying that maybe pushing back on the phenomenon is what, like, useless, or just kind of I
I
know
mean, I don't think it's any of this
I get the way
useless.
that
Like
it feels bad because it feels like
I
tone
think
policing. Yeah.
well, no, like it feels like tone policing because you're basically saying it's telling marginalized people, "Hey, you're being just like the racist people." It's kind of fucked up because like
Yeah, because it's not
we have
noticing
to
that
give
they're
people like people of color should be allowed to take things back. It's like slur discourse. Like if black folks want to retake slurs, they should be allowed to. Now, if you're a black person that does not like the N word for whatever reason, that's your personal decision. But I don't think tone policing is the way to go. Like there are slurs that Asian people say that I personally would never reclaim because they make me uncomfortable, but I'm not going to take away their right to say it if they want to, you know? There's some trans words that I don't like, but if some trans person wants to say it because they're mad or they're angry, I'll give it to them. Like that's kind of what it means. You know, like if some woman was assaulted by a man and they just they fall under the, "I hate all men" kind of thing, like, I can't blame them, you know? Like, I can't, Like, if someone goes through a trauma or goes through a thing, it's harder for them to have that radical empathy. Because me and you, Shark, like, because we actually, like, want to talk to people and actually wanna change hearts and minds, it is easier for us to go into the radical empathy square. It's easier for us to be like, "Hey, let's not say these words. Let's actually have a conversation." We can do that because we have the knowledge, the know-how, and we care and we want to. And it frustrates us when we see the pain of other people doing those hyperbolic statements because we know we are better than that as a community. And so I'm not trying to say that I like them, that I stand for them, and that I think that it's an equivalence of MAGA or, like, fashy people. But, like, if people do it, I'm not gonna take that away from them, I personally, like, don't like it just as much as you do, but, like, I don't feel it's my job to tone police, you know?
Uh, okay. So me personally, I think I can understand, like, we understood that, like, power allows you to wield racism in a way that um actually harms people. I'm not disagreeing with that. I know that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that racism is still racism. No
I
matter what.
still think that's a reductive way of looking at it, though, because, like, the power dynamics of white folks are always going to be above marginalized people, so it's
Well,
not
I didn't
racism.
well, I don't think power has anything to do with just plain racism.
It has 100% to do with everything. Racism is 100% power dynamics all the way.
Um,
Racism is built on power dynamics and class struggle.
I mean,
Racism is the product of power dynamics and class struggle. Power is fundamentally tied to how racism functions. It is a system of oppression. It's not just a thing. Things can be racist. That's obvious. Like, but in the way that they are racist and how they deal with power is 100% different than just something being racist. Because, like, we can agree in the abstract if something is racist. That is something that I completely agree. Um, Like, because we can all agree that, like, if someone it doesn't matter whether they're black, white, or, like, Asian or, like, Latin, if they say something that is racist, we can all agree on the base abstract definition of racism that or prejudice, that that is a racist or prejudiced statement. But if we look in the context of the power dynamic and what is being used and the people that are in this position or what's being at play, then we can look at it and go, "Oh, this actually makes sense. I understand why this woman is saying she hates all men because she was assaulted. So I understand why she's saying it that way. And it hurts that she has to say it that way. It hurts that she can't actually have empathy for these people. It pains me to see that, like, she actually, because she's traumatized by this event, the only thing that she knows is that catharsis. And
sure,
so
sure. Also,
it's
Dan Simpson in chat, you asked if a black. I heard Lady Rain kind of use something like this as well. If a black slave hates white people, would this guy call him racist? For one, Dan, I am black. Okay, all right. And two, yeah, it is. Me personally, I think, once again, I think impugning someone for their race is racist. I don't think it's ever
if there's not a power
justified.
dynamic involved, I don't
I
think it's
I
the same
don't
thing.
think it's ever justified. Now, some racism is obviously worse when you have the power to actually wield it and harm people materially. I think that's what I would separate from like the oppression part of racism. But I just think the utterance, you actually showing prejudice towards people for their race, is racism. Um,
I
I mean, you
I
could
don't
just
know.
disagree with that. I mean, that's cool or whatever. But I just think I don't disagree with anything you say, but I feel like you disagree with that. With like the idea of you wielding racism. But I just think the wielding of racism is different. Well, is a component that's not necessary to racism existing. I think any prejudice against someone for the race is racism, just period. I just don't think it's bad. I mean, my bad. I just don't think it's good, and it should always be addressed, no matter how big, no matter how small. I don't think
But
that you
that's
should.
just splitting, but that's honestly but that's not approaching power. You're not fixing power. You're not fixing oppression or class. You're just being retentive over over just like the definitions of racism. You're reducing racism by just saying, well, all racism's bad. You're not actually
Well,
providing nuance to the conversation because
I
you're just
did
defaultly
provide.
saying it's bad.
I did provide
There's no
nuance.
nuance there. That's like me saying
I did
genocide
pro
bad, uwu. It's the same.
No,
You're
I
basically you're doing that. You're unironically saying racism bad, uwu.
what I said was it's all racism, but some racism is worse. That's the nuance there.
That's not the nuance.
Some
You cannot say all racism is bad and some is worse. Racism is just bad, full stop. But some of it is treated differently based on power dynamics. There is no one is worse than the other. It is bad, full stop. Now,
I
who
I could agree with that too. I just think that, well, if that's the case, then sure I could say that, but then some's worth more worth your time than
there is
others.
nothing more worth than anything less. If you're anti-racist, you're anti-racist, full stop.
Well,
There's no
okay.
there's no
So you
there's no mar
so
there's
your
no
thing is,
there's
so I feel like I would fit that definition where I say I'm anti-racist full stop, and you say you are, but you just don't care about this type of, well, I don't know,
No,
prejudice.
anti-racism is not just anti-racism is identifying the idea that everything in the United States is based in a power dynamic and the majority of things are wrapped in white supremacy. And it's your job as a person it's your job as someone who is being anti-racist to educate people and why these power dynamics and why these nuances are bad. That is the job of someone who declares themselves anti racist. It seems like you care more about optics than you do like being anti racist. It seems like you just want to tackle racism broadly, but not actually care about the systemic issues because you have to look at all of these things on a case by case basis, not just saying, well, racism bad. Because like racism is bad but, like, power dynamics are completely different depending on it is. It's just like, white people getting upset that black people are getting certain rights and privileges saying, "What about me?" That's not racist. That's just that's just fair. Like, black people getting things that they rightfully deserve and white people not reaping those rewards is not racist. They black people are impugned with that. Marginalized people are impugned with those things because they've been oppressed for 400 years. Like,
Well,
it just
I
seems
don't
it
know
just seems
how I'm not addressing systemic issues
you're not because you're just saying
by,
everything's bad, but, like, you can't just say everything's bad, but some is worse.
well, I think I can easily can. Like, think these things are bad, but I think some is doing more damage to the world. I think some damage is more damage than other damage. I
That's
mean, that
not
just seems
how it
like an easy.
works. You can't there is no one is better than the other. If you are anti-racist, if you think these things are bad, then they're bad, full stop.
Yeah, they are. They're not there can't be degrees to
What what is
wrongdoing.
what is what is a degree of racism that's less than something else?
A degree of racism that's less than something else. Well, as we were talking about, if you're like in your like intersectional like leftist community and you're like, haha, I hate white people. I think that does less damage. And so I would consider less bad than like a neo-Nazi rally. But I think they're both
Why are you
consider
comparing Nazis to the hyperbolic upset folks? That's not how you should look at race.
I
That's
mean,
not
all
how you
right.
should look at these examples. That's ridiculous.
Okay. I mean, if you that's fine. Um, no, I just think that I think they're both racism and they're both bad and they both need to be tackled, but some is worse, and so that needs to be tackled first.
There's
I have
no tackling
priorities.
one first. You have to tackle all of it, full stop. You can't just make decisions about what is not okay and what is okay. You can't make
Um,
concessions with racism.
I did not say one was okay. I said one was worse.
You are making concession by saying one is worse. You know that, right?
Yeah, I think one is doing more damage, so we should tackle it first. or put most of our
One is
effort
not
towards that.
doing any more damage. One is not doing more damage than the other. White supremacy is integrated in the very foundation of this country. If you don't like the tiniest bit, you have to hate the biggest bit just as much. If you're
Wait,
going to be anti-racist, you have to fight every single aspect of racial oppression and systemic oppression.
sure. Hey, Irene, are we talking past each other? I want to get a third opinion because I'm actually not sure. We may be
I
just
mean,
talk.
it
I may not
sounds
be
like you're both
understanding her.
ignoring, or sorry, not ignoring, the opposite of ignoring. It sounds like you're both voicing, acknowledging each
Like,
other's, like, you
like,
know, take,
like
but maybe in
civility
a,
politics is
it's like
like to me. This
emphasis
sounds
is
like
what I'm seeing. Like
this just
that's
to me like this sounds like civility politics. This sounds like tone policing again. Like, there's no one racism is bad. Like, racism is bad, full stop. If you're going to be anti-racist, you have to tackle the tiniest stuff like microaggressions as hard as you tackle white supremacy. You can't tackle one first because if you eliminate all the Nazis but don't deprogram white people to be like to understand microaggressions, then the racism just continues. You didn't actually fix the problem. You just bandaged one and left the other one unchecked. You
yeah,
have to go through all of them. You cannot skip one and
right.
prioritize the other. If you want to be anti-racist, you have to be anti-racist. Full fucking stop.
So what do you wait? I feel like we're talking past each other. When did you get the? I mean, did it sound like I was saying that we shouldn't tackle microaggressions? Wait, did it sound like I said that like
It sounded like
microaggressions from
you said one is
from
worse
the
than the
oppressing
other, and
class?
that's you
Well,
said one is worse than the other.
one second. So did it sound like I said that mm, like like microaggressions from the like oppressing class is not as bad, so we shouldn't care about it? That's what it sounded like.
I mean, yeah, because that's what this argument always boils down to, because people want to tackle the Nazis or the fascists or like the Ben Shapiro racism and stuff, but then they completely forget about the little things. I had this same thing happen with the with Vaush's with the Vaush debate. He was so fixated on you sound like a Nazi, I fight Nazis. Nazism, that's the racism that's bad, but then, you're doing this and it's like it, it's choosing to forget that like he was still showing racism in the way he talked about Asia. He's so
Okay.
sure like that, but he was so sure to tell me like, we fix racism or we fix these things with the global south with this because we know how to do X, Y, and Z. It's like that's always a lot of people's approach to race is like we can do all of it if we just have this one fits all solution. But most of the time, those one fits all solutions to try and like the civility politic way of doing a race never tackles the microaggressions. It never tackles the stuff that people need to personally unpack. That shit is really, really fucking important because the microaggression stuff, the little things, that's what actually affects people like in their personal lives, which can affect how they deal with things in their everyday life. Because a lot of people that are marginalized are aware that systemic racism is largely out of their control because institutions have tremendous amounts of power, right? So like just because if we defund the police, right? Like if we successfully like abolish the police TM, we still have racism in the financial sector. So like if just because police have been abolished, what if banks decide they don't want to give out loans to black people? That's still racism. Like we didn't fix racism because we abolished police. There's still other systems. Like it is massively systemic. And so you have to tackle it from every single angle at every single person. It's the only way to successfully get it because as you educate people with anti-racism, the movement gets more cohesive and then people start holding each other more accountable and it keeps going. Does
Somebody's
that
in
make
chat
sense?
saying that
Well, I
this
feel
sounds like
like
the white guilt meme, and I just wanted to say that like we had this discussion. You talked about this earlier, Mel, that you're not like proposing a special type of guilt to like impose on people with like implicit bias. What you're more advocating is getting over this idea of like seeing it as like, okay, racism is this thing that exists over there with the Klan and the really bad people, the Proud Boys, and all the fucking other, obvious motherfuckers that are just explicit about their racism, but then to like leave intact the racism that might still exist within us that might be more implicit. Whereas, it's not like supposed to be it's not trying to be a guilt thing. And I get people's concern that white guilt usually doesn't actually end up like solving anything. It just kind of wrings
Yeah,
its
white guilt
hands a
doesn't
bunch
do
and
anything. Like,
it makes
white
people
guilt is
really
worthless.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, like, I think white guilt is worthless. I don't want white people to feel bad that racism is bad. I want them to fucking do shit. You
Yeah.
know, like, if you're a privileged person, like, if you're a cis person, stop feeling bad for trans people. Donate to a trans mutual aid fund. Give money to black trans
Yeah,
women.
this isn't
Buy
about guilt.
HRT for your trans friend. Stop, I get, like, you can still vote. You can still vote for trans laws. You can still say trans rights. But if you're not providing the material support for those people, if you're not, like, deprogramming your family and your friends to be less racist, then you're not actually tackling white supremacy. You're not actually tackling, like queerphobia. You're just like it's easy to punch Nazis. It's easy to fight the bigots because they're blatantly racist. But if you're not tackling the systems all around you in your community and your daily life, you're not actually doing the material work to help everybody because those little material fights actually matter. They're really fucking important and people forget how important they are. Look how many times we have a streamer or a bread tuber that says something kind of racist or like marginalized people feel unheard. It happens every fucking week now. So we've been having this happen in our community so many times, and yet we don't address it because everyone views it as being canceled or being attacked. This is my point. They want to talk about, beating the Nazis every day. These people will talk about beating the Nazis every day, but then they'll do a mild racism. People will say, hey, don't do this. Just think about read the room, you know? And then we have to have the same conversation over and over again. Like we shouldn't be having trans and racialized conversations in our leftist spaces. Like we should all know this stuff. The fact that we have these scandals over and over and over again is pathetic, actually.
Could I
Like
hop in here
it's
for a
like
sec?
it's just sad. Like Nazis are easy to make fun of, but if you're not actually doing the internal work, then what are you doing?
Shark, did you want to say something to that?
Yeah. So I feel like Mel, you may be ascribing something to my point because the first thing that you said about like we should be fighting racism in everyone. That's something I absolutely. You said when you were talking or like originally, I was like, oh, there's something like I absolutely agree with. So I'm still wondering what's the point of disagreement, and I think it's probably that what we would call racism, I guess, because I do think that we should tackle all racism, but for
Yeah,
me, I
it seems
explained that
like
I do think that's racism. Wait one second.
okay.
I think that that's racism, and I just think that it's doing more damage, so we should expend more time on it. But I'm not saying that we should just pretend like it doesn't
I
exist
disagree.
or
You have to do all of it. You can't just compartmentalize what is more damaging than the other. It's all damaging.
okay. Yeah, I agree with that.
But you said that before. Like you literally said that one of them was more damaged than the other. Like one of them was more
Oh,
damaging than the other.
I may not be explaining this right. I mean, like what I would call racism from marginalized people is what I think is doing less damage, so it doesn't require as much like effort. But I still think it's wrong, and I still think it should change, and that should be something that we're working towards. Does that make more
Right. Like we
sense?
could we yeah, okay. So like I guess we can agree here. Like so like how about this? Like okay. I guess something that I will agree with is let's take colorism for example. So like colorism sucks, right? So colorism is something that like all communities go through. Like I assume like, like light skinned and dark skinned like people of color and BIPOC folks, like there's a huge difference between someone who is fair skinned as like someone who's Asian. There's like I know that like you're black, so like there is a huge difference between like light and dark skinned black folks. So like I do think that there are fights to be had, but I do think it's important to acknowledge that when it comes to colorism and those kinds of like little things, I'm not trying to like when I say little things, I'm not trying to minimize them and call them little. Um, like they are like inner community. So when I think of colorism and like Asian ethnic bullshit, like Japanese and Korean folks or whatever, that is more of like an inner community thing and has to do with colorism. And there's those biases and stuff. And those privileges, depending on who you are as an Asian person, so like East Asian folks in the United States, because I'm Korean, because I'm East Asian, there are levels of privileges that people assume that I have or treat me over someone who is like Laotian or Cambodian. Because, just the way racial hierarchies are viewed within Asian diasporas, like treat those people differently, they treat us differently, and white folks treat us differently. So I will agree with you that like colorism is something that like we have to tackle, like our colorism and our prejudices and stuff. Like those things are really so I guess maybe I do agree with your point that like we do need to tackle these things, but I do think at the same time like there is no the level of importance of inner community racism and prejudice and colorism are just as high on the priority list as institutional racism as is white supremacy. Like I think it's all the same kind of bad. I think it's silly to try and say one is worse than the other because I think it's good to be consistently principled in trying to work at all of it. So I'm not maybe are we still talking past each other or
No, I mean, I think I kind of understand it. Maybe like I think it was like most of the way I was framing it. Maybe
okay.
that was like
Again,
problems with, but yeah, I think that we should have priorities with some things that we
The
work
little
on.
dudes
I
come
have
up, and
noticed
like I just
problems in
naturally
the
am like
left
little
wing community.
dudes.
I would call this racism, um, and I think that it's bad, and I think it actively does damage to our movement, and it makes it harder for us to integrate more people, especially for the ones who are coming in. Like you're imagine just like walking into like as a white person, right? You're getting into like leftism or whatever. Your friend got you into it. You're at like a Bernie Sanders rally or whatever. Just like imagine,
yeah.
good old days. And you go into like the back room when you're talking, and you're like, and you give them a brief. You're like, okay, all right. They're all going to make fun of the way you look, they'll make fun of the way you sound. They're going to make fun of your skin tone, where you're from. They're going to do all of this to you, and it's okay. Just like put up with it for a little bit, and it's going to be great. I just think that no one should have to go through that. Period.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I guess maybe I thought your side is I guess maybe okay, so maybe again, like this is something that I always talk about and I think I'm glad you brought it up. I think we are operating on maybe slightly different framework. To me, like your original statement at the very top of this discussion, like this specific topic, it sounded like you were like pushing more towards civility politics. I do want to ask you, like, do you think that we need to have more of a civility politic when it comes to race discussion?
Um, I think it's in well, I think there's a difference between being civil and harsh. I think if you're just like screeching at someone, obviously you're not getting any points across, and it's just like bad in every single
Okay.
level. But I think that I think it's important to be harsh sometimes so people understand where they're coming from. Now personally, I don't like to use profanity a lot. I think personally it should be used a lot where I think it exclaims a lot of emotion. And I think it should be used at that point in time. But other people use it, whatever. Who cares? Um, when it comes to that, I really feel like it's important to be harsh. Like you understand, this hurts a lot of people. Racism does. It ruins lives that should not happen. That is incredibly important, and we should not dilute that experience by pretending to be civil when you don't have to. But also understand where, like, sometimes your rhetoric can be beneficial, and sometimes it's just not. And if you're not being beneficial to this movement of anti-racism, I'm not sure what you're doing talking. That's
I
just like
think I
my thing.
agree.
But I don't think that you should be civil. Like you should be harsh when you have the time to, when it's important. Yeah.
Okay, I actually think we agree here. Okay, so I think I get what you're driving at now. I think I understand. So I think we both have the same opinion where um so I think what you're saying is like so you're not saying you can't not be harsh, but like read the room. Like there are just some people like you know what I mean like it's preferable to be civil, but like if you have to sort of like be a little bit more abrasive about it, like if it's permissible, like it's probably fine. Is that, like, a reasonable thing? Like, it's
Yeah,
not
I
it's
think
like I guess, like a picking your battles kind of thing, like, you're not trying to say that, like, "Oh, no, you can't do that." I guess to me, it seems like I in your personal viewpoint, it's just less preferable, like, you just don't find that as, like, the route, but you don't
um
necessarily disagree with it being, like, if someone needs that, you don't necessarily disagree with it happening, you just prefer for it to not.
I personally, I would say that it is morally impermissible at all points in time because my core belief is no one should be impugned for their characteristics. Um, I think if someone feels like they need that, then we should work on that and make sure that we can fix that. So like you don't I feel like you don't need that. We can work on something else that to wait for you to cope with that feeling. I don't think you need that. It's just not beneficial to anyone and I just don't think anybody should be impugned for the race. No matter how much of I mean I guess like in some contexts if it's a joke with like some people I think like private jokes is different than public jokes, but I just think if you need this, use it in a very private space or don't use it at all.
I mean, yeah, I can try that.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
yeah,
impugning
no,
someone for the race, that's just prejudice. It just doesn't sit with me. Just period.
alright, yeah. I mean, I think my point still like, my opinion kind of still stands, like, I think, like, if you wanna be hyperbolic, like, I think it's totally fine. Um, yeah, I mean, I think we agree, like, 90, like, 5% of the way. I think I'm just a little bit more lenient on, like, people being just, like, a little bit more, like, spicy, like, when they need to be or when they want to be. I
Sure.
mean, yeah,
My question would
I think that's
be where would you call it impermissible then? Let's say like a research came out or something, right? That said a Pew
mhm.
Research poll said that and we like dug into the minds of people. It's in the future. We could like peer into someone's
Ow,
mind and they
ow.
were like, "Wait, just if you," and they were like turned off by that rhetoric that led them to not continue into leftism. Would you say that that would be impermissible then if we could see
I
that? Or what do
I
you think?
mean,
I just want to know when
well,
you
the
feel like
only
that would be
reason why like,
impermissible.
I can't really say no because, the only reason why I can't say no to your I can't the only reason why I can't say no to your hypothetical is because like, you've moved you've moved this conversation into now we know that they're racist, or now that we know they have a bias, and so that, like,
No. What
the
I meant is let's talk about like the general populace, right? Some like random white dude from suburbia land, Ohio. Let's say that he was turned off and did not continue down leftism. Like down that path. He's not necessarily like a racist or anything. He just hasn't gone more into leftism, which I think is also a problem. Would you call that impermissible? Like if we knew that this happened at like I don't know 50% rate where someone introduces someone to leftism, they're turned off after hearing like something like that. Would you say then we should work on this or
well,
no
I
or
mean,
that's still
the problem the hard part is like I feel like there isn't a general prescription for these kinds of conversations because implicit bias will always exist. Like that's kind of my only like counter argument. It's not to say that you're like incorrect or anything, because I do think what you're driving at is like we're like I would like us to be like in an ideal world, right? Like, but the problem is like there's implicit bias. It's like you're gonna like very much of these things are going to be case by case. Like, I really do feel that, like, a lot of it is going to be like, use your best judgment call to how you deal with the situation and how you talk to these people.
yeah. Also,
Um,
1 second, goal herd. Imagine someone not being a leftist because their feelings got hurt. I'm sorry, but normal people, if they walk into a room, if I bring my friend, then I'm like, dude, this political ideology is so cool. It's gonna make us so much better. And I bring them into a room, and then all they hear for the next 30 minutes are people cracking jokes about their skin tone, their color, like what they think that they believe without even talking to them. And like, even if it's jokes, would you want to continue in that space? Just period. Like just imagine
I
like
mean
it, with
that's
like
about being well, that's about being principled. Like that to me, like I guess let me what did Goldhead say? Imagine not being a leftist because their feelings were. I mean, like people's feelings are gonna get fucking hurt, dog. Like emotional labor to unpack trauma and to like confront your biases and to confront the internalized like phobias and isms that you have that are preventing you from being a better person are always going to like create
Yeah, that
fucking
that
hurt feelings
introspection is
and like
going to be incredibly hard, like hard to get with. But I think we can do that without "fuck you, you're white."
I mean, I don't think that everyone like honestly like I don't think that many people are just walking around saying fuck you like you're white. I think people have to get pushed to a point to be saying fuck you, you're white. I think there's a huge difference between people that are just actually saying it to be dicks and edgy assholes versus people that like they've been pushed in that corner. And I think I would, you know, I would hopefully assume that the majority of people have been pushed into that corner to where that's why they're saying that. I don't think the average like leftist or average like anti-racist person is trying to. I don't think the average person is like trying to be like like I don't think a bunch of woke people are saying in a room all like in cadence. Yeah, fuck white people. I think people might be saying it like a silly manner. I mean I don't know. I've been in a lot of circles. I've never really heard anyone get like super hurt over like all men are trash or fuck white folks or whatever. I haven't heard.
More
I mean,
than anything, I always hear like white guys saying this to in an attempt to endear themselves to a room that they realize for the
yeah,
first time isn't like mostly white guys. Like when they step into spaces like that, they're a little bit uncomfortable and they kind of want to like let us know, hey, I'm not one of the assholes. Just so you know, like I fucking know how shitty white guys can be, and like I mean it's cringy, it's a little uncomfortable and it doesn't like accomplish what they're trying to do, but some of them I suppose like are just I don't know, I mean like I guess that could be like a learning opportunity too if they're like even though what they're
yeah,
feeling in this one situation isn't like the same as what marginalized people feel and isn't even close
yeah.
on scale, it's like you know um them maybe I don't know. Does them doing that to displace the anxiety? Does that like stand in the way of them like
I don't know. Personally,
recognizing?
that stuff makes me uncomfortable.
Me too. Yeah.
I would personally be uncomfortable if I go to like my local DSA, and
Mm-hmm.
then like all the white people were sitting around like, "Ha, we ain't white." Like my the area I'm at is very white. I would imagine that probably, if not the only, like one of the only black people there. If
Yeah.
I like got there and they started joking about how white people suck, isn't that right, Chris? I'd be like, dude, what the fuck is
Oh
happening
my
here?
God, no, that's what
I'd
I'm
be
talking about. That's like gotta be super
I'd be
uncomfortable.
that
Yeah.
would actually be almost the same thing as like white libs using simpler words around black
Yeah.
people. Like I noticed that you started using simpler
Well,
words around
okay,
me.
so like I think there's a difference. Okay, I think here's what I'm seeing here. I think there's a huge difference with self-deprecating humor and sort of like acknowledging that they suck versus like okay, so like I I I guess I can see your point. Like I think if any white person is sitting in a room like with a marginalized person and they're like doing this just like yeah white people suck and they're trying to like impress you with that statement
Yeah.
or they're like doing a self-deprecating like yeah white people are fucking cucks or whatever you know what I mean they're just gonna
Mm.
say some weird wild shit right. I do think that is white guilt
Yeah,
and I
I
think
think if
that's
you want to
cringe.
tell me that, what you would say is
I
white
I
supremacy
agree
exists and
with
it's
you.
bad. Let's fight against it. And I'd be like, bro, pick your head up, stand with me, comrade. I don't want you.
Yeah.
I don't like
Like,
it. It's
like,
just
dude,
really
I
bad.
totally get that. Like, okay, so if that's the way that you're seeing that phrase being used, I 100% agree that white guilt is fucking bad and it's cringe. And like, you just need to get the fuck over your bullshit. Like, you need to stop being a baby and grow up. Now, like, if a black person who's been, like, attacked by the police and, some white person just like, like they're having a really bad day and someone, kind of acts really shitty to them and they're just like, man, fuck you. cracker or whatever, they say some like kind of like, they say they say a phrase. I don't necessarily think that that person is like on the same equivalency as say like fascist or deprecating white guilt. I think it does determine I think it does very much vary from what the situation is presenting itself to
Yeah.
be. So I 100% agree. Like if I walked into DSA meeting as the only like trans person or and then all the cis people are like, what are your pronouns, cis? And it's like really like that to me is like really awkward because like and like that would be like if they ask me my pronouns, I
Careful.
say,
You're
hey,
You're
like
treading on thin ice there. That was very close to where Contra was. Just so you're.
well, no, that's not what I'm. Well,
I know,
no, that's not.
I know. I'm just thinking.
But this is true though because this happens, right? So like, this is not. That's not a controversial take. Like, it is weird. It's not. I'm not trying to
Oh
say that
no, I
like.
didn't. It was just it was like close enough to the Contra thing that I thought I'd like say something, but I was
Oh,
mostly
yeah,
kidding.
no,
Yeah.
because like I've been in situations like that too, where like I show up to a place and then people ask me like, what are your pronouns or whatever, and I'm the only trans person. And so, I'd be like, okay, well my pronouns are are she, like, or she, they, or whatever. And, and then people will go, well, like mine are she, her, and it's like, well, I know that, you know what I mean? Like, like I know you guys are all cis people. Um, and I don't it
Oh,
doesn't
you're
make me
assuming
personally
people's gender?
it doesn't make me
I mean,
personally
yeah, that is true. We
uncomfortable.
don't necessarily know, but I mean,
Oh, no.
unless we know them already and they've talked about it. But yeah, because I mean,
Like
you
Hey,
could
is
I
always be
don't
Mel?
like
surprised.
Hey, Mel, is that your
I'm not like a
nickname or is it short for like Melanie or something?
no, my full name is Melanie, but everyone calls me Mel.
Okay.
Like everyone calls me Mel. Like I remember like when I first picked my name, like everyone just started calling me Mel and I just kind of rolled with it.
I guess it's like my legal name is Christian, but my cool nickname is Chris.
Yeah, I mean everyone it's the shorthand, right? Like the shorthand is cooler. Like
Yeah.
most like I think the only people that ever like actually call me Melanie are like my partners and stuff. So like good girls that like me, like they'll like do the whole like lesbian sapphic yurdy and like call me Melanie. But like most people just call me Mel. And I actually prefer it that way. Like I actually like when just people call me Mel because it's easier because everyone calls me Mel. So like when someone calls me Melanie, it like freaks me out because I'm like, oh, am I in trouble? Am I going to the doctor? Am I like am I going to the principal's office? Like like
Mhm.
why are you saying Melanie? Like am I in trouble? You know. But
Oh no.
anyway, like so back to the thing that I wanted to say. So like I've been in spaces where it does feel awkward, and I'm not trying. And like this is the same thing. Like when I'm the only like person of color in a room full of white people, and they do the white guilt thing, or I'm the only trans people and they do the pronoun thing. I don't think I don't hate that stuff. I just think it's like learn to read the room. Like if I'm the only marginalized person, I don't need you to do that for me. I get it. It's chill. It doesn't like I don't like I'm not personally like upset. Like if someone if a cis person wants to say their pronouns she her in solidarity, I will accept that. I won't get upset. Like I'll take that. I'll be like, you know what? You're trying your best, sis. Like I totally understand. Um but I completely understand your frustration with like just being frustrated, right? And like I don't really, and I'm not trying to like go too much on that whole contra thing, but like I said, I have had that stuff happen to me and it does feel a little alienating sometimes. And I think it does suck. I think it does suck. And I do think that when you as a marginalized person get put on a pedestal like that, you do feel like you're being tokenized. You don't really feel like you're being you don't you feel like the privileges of those people are kind of like going, "Hey, look at this person." They're not really elevating you as a person. They're kind of putting you like on a spotlight. And it feels really weird. So
Yeah.
yeah, I 100% agree with you, Shark, that if I were in your shoes too, like I would still feel very uncomfortable. So I think there is a good conversation to be had about depending on the spaces that you're in, like what is appropriate to say and what is not appropriate to say. And I think it's a good conversation that we all should be having.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's incredibly hard to. I don't want to like impugn anyone, but I feel like lots of people, you can tell by the way they talk that they just spend a lot of time online talking to other leftists and not like people on the ground, like in their real world. You know, they talk a big game on twitter.com on the Bird app, but then when they go to their job or anything, they don't talk to any of their coworkers about any of this or anything. I think you can see that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to people all the time about communism. Like, I think it's weird when people on like Twitter and like the debate where people like assume I've never been on, like I don't go outside. Like, I mean, I've been doing this whole talk about socialism for like 7 years now. I'm not bad at it. Like, it's you have to treat every conversation like whenever you're talking about anti-blackness, talking about anti-racism, talk about like like anti like racism towards like Latin people or Asian folks. You have to take all these things like one step at a time. You're never going to be in a situation that's going to be perfect. You could be in a situation where white people are just going to knee-jerk reaction you, cis people are just going to call you whatever, and sometimes you'll win and sometimes you'll lose. I think the most important thing that anyone should take from this conversation is that this requires lots of conversation. Like it took me like 6 months to like get my like coworker to finally say like class struggle. Like it took him 6 months to like realize, wait, it's all class struggle. But he now that he figures out that it's all class struggle, he's still struggling with how class struggle interacts with race. Because he's kind of stuck in this place where he's just thinking about class and he's not thinking about intersectionality.
mhm.
And so the next step in our conversations is like, how do we get him to stop centering his whiteness in every single situation that has to deal with race? Because he does that a lot. And so again, like it's very much dependent on the kind of person you're talking to and the situations that you're in. That's how you know you're doing the kind of work that you need to do and stuff like that. So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
yeah,
it's
definitely.
tough
I
stuff.
mean, I remember AOC saying that there's one person in your life that can that you can reach. And I try and tell that to my community a lot. Go out and talk to someone. There's one person out there that respects you enough who's holding bad views that you can reach and will respect your point of view. But no, yeah, I just think that just these things, I just don't think that they're useful or conductive or you need them really. And the benefit that we get of making our spaces more inclusive to different types of people, especially people of like privileged status, to come be like, hey, let's talk. That's like extremely beneficial, especially in my talks,
Yeah.
because I don't think I would ever ask any of my friends to go on fucking lefty Twitter or anything for any amount of time. Like I would completely lose that person. Uh, they'd be like
Yeah.
so turned
Yeah.
off.
It's actually really funny. Like a lot of my IRL friends, like they actually follow my Twitter. Like people like get my personal, but they actually like, just kind of check my Twitter every once in a while, and they read the things that like they read like the lefty Twitter discourse, and they're just like, "What the fuck is happening?" And I always like tell them like, "Dude, I have no idea. Like this is like apparently normal. Like the way
Yeah,
like these
I would never
conversations."
at them. I think the closest thing I would ever do is maybe send them to like some Reddit pages like ours, like the old Bernie ones, like
No,
r
no,
slash
they just read
revolution
it for
maybe.
fun. They just read
Oh,
it
okay.
for fun. They're not
Yeah.
like actually like engaging. They see it and they're just like, this is not how the world is. And I'm like, exactly. Because like we'll have conversations about like race and class and all these things, and like we all kind of agree on the same shit. Like we're all trying to do our best to be good people and be committed to just being better. But then they look at like just the left things on left Twitter and they're just like, what is this hell site? And I'm like, well, it's a mixture of shit post and shit talking and actual organizing and uh,
Inside jokes.
rhetoric and inside jokes and politics, like, there's things like Stop the Count and Genocide Bad Ooh Woo and like N-word Andy. Like there's all these, like little memes and like it's when you're from the outside, you just don't like you don't understand like how this is even relevant and like it is
Yeah.
good to realize that these things are not like they're different.
Also, one last thing, I gotta make it quick. It's 5 a.m. and I go to
Oh
work in the
my
morning.
god.
You didn't touch on too much of the whole like making the world richer. Socialism is when no iPhone thing with Vaush too much. Um, personally, personally I agree that kind of with Vaush more on this one, that I think that moving towards socialist policies and also striving for socialism, and having global solidarity, and helping developing nations be able to become economically viable would make the world richer in general. Um, but I guess
I
like
don't
that has some
disagree with
problems with it.
I don't disagree with the concept. I have disagreement with the process and how we get there, and that's what I wanted to know from Vaush, and he couldn't tell me how we could get there. He just wanted to tell me that we could do it, and I'm like, yeah, no shit, dude. Of course we can do it, but how? And then his solution was this incredibly long-winded, convoluted point about just it was just I don't know, it was just words. It was just like, well, we can do this and that and this and that and this and that. And it's like, but you're not telling me what the best path is. You're just regurgitating stuff that we can do. And like that was my biggest frustration is he never told me what he thought we should do. He was always like, these are all the things we can do. And it's like, well, no shit, we can do those things.
Sure, but don't you think you could pull some? I mean, if there were like a bunch of things that we could do, that all work.
George Orwell. Sorry.
Literally 1925 right now. Um, no, but yeah, if there are like a bunch of things that we can do, don't you think would you think that's sufficient enough to say that, oh yeah, there's like things that we can do, or were you looking for a specific like what's point A, point B here, all mapped out? Because personally, I feel like that may be a little bit too much of an ask. When we're just talking about an extremely broad, extremely for right now hypothetical idea.
I don't think that hypothetical is that broad because degrowth is a very specific economic restructuring plan. It's actually not that nuanced. The nuance behind degrowth is how much are you willing to sacrifice within your own home country to solidify and qualify the boundaries, borders, and states and trading in the global south and what kind of ways you want to deal with resource extraction and how we deal with resource extraction and what resources do we extract like for example liquid oil that comes out of the ground requires way less logistics and materials and pollution and industry than mining lithium out of the ground. Lithium is incredibly environmentally damaging if you do not dispose of the water properly. It's incredibly expensive if you can't logistically efficiently move it out of the mine. The work is very dirty, it's very time consuming, and so I think you need to have the nuance to understand like what your working definition with degrowth is. Um, that's why I think the conversation was difficult because it's not that broad. It's a very specific topic. And so I felt that he was being very reductive by just saying, well, here's a bunch of things that I know that are possible to do degrowth, let's just do it. And it's like, okay, but you're not really giving me like your direction. Like you can say you believe in the five like steps or whatever, but you never like clarified which one he was in favor of. When I tried to press him for it, he was like being weird about it. But anyway, I don't want to get into this because you have to, you gotta like go to work and stuff.
Sure. Here one
If
thing.
you ever want to talk about
What
degrowth, like I mean, I'll come on and talk to you about degrowth and like I have like a whole like document and some points and stuff. So you ever actually legitimately wanted to talk about this as a subject, like I don't mind.
Sure, I'll keep it in mind. Um, one thing, what do you think, let's say, lots of like developing nations right now are working off oil. They're selling oil, their economy is getting big strong, big thick, big strong off of oil sales. Well, let and like uh a lot of the developed nations, global north, they just almost completely cut off oil because they're moving their economies towards electric. Do you think that is overall harmful or overall beneficial? And what would your plan be to fix that? Or like, what would your plan?
I
Do you
guess
have
I
any
guess
idea? My bad. Do you have any? I want to like put it down a little bit. Do you have any ideas already? For what we would do
I guess
about
my
that?
only I guess I'd have to ask a follow-up question, like what would be the cost benefit analysis for them to be moving away from one system as opposed to the other?
Well, I mean, cost benefit, well, like climate change. Um. Uh.
Well, we're operating in a vacuum, we're not operating with climate change. If we're operating with climate change, that's a completely different answer. So like if we're operating with climate change, I guess if you said climate change. So if we're operating with climate change, um, I think we should let developing countries decide how they need to do their resource expenditure because their transition to green energy is going to be different than our transition to green energy, right? Because we don't rely on oil to the same extent that say like West Asia does. We would have to we would essentially have to make sure that we are comparably making the same amount of resource generation as we were getting previously with oil without being exploitative, and that just probably requires it's probably going to require government support or populations to just sort of like set their own goals for minimizing like the labor that gets moved over. Like it's I don't think there's a one size fits all solution. I do think it's going to be a multilateral approach. Now the problem is with multilateral approaches in terms of like moving the like modes of production, you're going to hit a bunch of people that are going to say that this is austerity, and I disagree because it only becomes austerity um if the entire population has to like lower their living standard. If we could focus on a group of people lowering their living standard, so like if just the rich did that and like just businesses and corporations and stuff just changed their practices and it didn't affect the working poor and the working poor could still enjoy the upward mobility that they've been trying to, you know, if the working poor eventually like get to upward mobility finally after being like, oppressed by those kinds of like capitalist incentives, then yeah, maybe. But
I
Uh,
feel like
again,
if
like
I
I
feel
don't.
like if we could just fund some bullshit research that shows that doing quote unquote menial tasks is somehow necessary for the preservation of one's
It's not.
cognitive faculties,
Useless
like
jobs are
that we could
bad. I
get
have
like the rich to to kind of be like, yeah, actually we need to lower our standard of living in order to have a higher
menial.
standard of
But,
no, I
but
living.
have the I have the
menial jobs are
proper
bad though.
I have
Menial
the
jobs are
proper
Well,
useless.
yeah,
idea here.
and it's concentrating all the worst aspects of work into one job for one person, and then rewarding them for doing that for us by giving them the least amount of pay and the least amount of benefits. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah,
I get
absolutely.
it. Most of us can do almost all of the jobs. We just rotate. And the most menial tasks, we convince all the men that menial tasks make your dick bigger. And honestly, I'd be right there sweeping the floors and mopping and wiping the walls down. I'd be right there
I
with my
don't think
boys.
I think menial tasks are monumental wastes of time and resources, and they're not efficient, and they slow down economies, and they pigeonhole people into wage labor jobs that just inflate profits, and they do nothing for the global growth of economy
What do
because
you call a
automation can
menial like task? Like cleaning?
any job that can actually be automated or done without enough like or done without as many humans, right? So like mainly like if we can somehow automate logistics, that would be completely fine. Now, like cleaning jobs, I think we're splitting hairs here. Like obviously things get dirty. So
Hmm.
I don't think cleaning jobs would ever be eliminated. When I think of menial jobs, I think of like mainly logistics jobs. I do really agree that automation is the goal, but I think it depends on what automation sectors we're automating.
Sure. You'd
Again,
have to
like
figure out how to transfer that wealth from those
right,
jobs that no longer exist back to the working
right.
class.
And the thing is like that wealth can't go back to the rich, and I think that's where we're gonna run into the austerity problem, and I don't like austerity. So like here's the thing that I think people are misconstruing when I say I'm in favor of degrowth. I don't like austerity, but the way the current framing of our economic system in the United States is, because like half of our country is like very much glued to a central planned economy, and the other half is very much kind of like your free market, your small business, your startup, your Uber, your non-contract jobs, because we have two completely different like competition, because we have a mixed market economy, we have to kind of decide like what like I believe the more bureaucratic and centralized jobs like factories and Amazon warehouses, like Walmart warehouses, like Target distribution centers, I do think that those jobs can be automated, but I do think like stuff like the small business, the coffee shop, the janitorial service, I don't think those things can actually be feasibly automated until we start changing and restructuring our infrastructure and our society to become more efficient. I think public transit would broadly fix a lot of problems because public transit gets rid of cars, public transit gets rid of a lot of unnecessary like infrastructure to provide for cars. Like parking lots are incredibly wasteful. There's a lot of research to determine that like parking lots actually like put more CO2 like into the atmosphere because like the hot sun reflects on the concrete
Yeah,
and
I
all this
mean,
kind of shit.
I
Like
live
we
in
need more
a
green
town in
spaces.
Yeah, I live in a town in Kentucky that's kinda like half rural, half urban. The city's
Right.
planned pretty poorly, and it's hard for, like, especially older or poor people or, younger kids who need to be able to help work for their, families to, keep them afloat, to get into the city where all the jobs are. I've been thinking about, setting up something and don't going to talk to my city council sometime about setting up, like, a bus public transportation service, because I definitely know people who have, had lots of trouble
Yeah.
uh,
So I think
yeah,
moving
getting
I think it's
transportation.
also like yeah, so like I think like
But
something
also,
that I
yeah,
think people
I'm sorry,
forget
just
about.
quick, and then I have to go.
Oh, no, the only thing I wanted to say was, like, I think, like, just the removing of parking lots when we build public transit and just putting in green spaces, that would monumentally lower, like, our carbon, like, in the atmosphere because, like, just buildings, like, when Walmarts and Targets and, like, big box stores, get, like, abandoned because they go out of business or they move the store, the companies will leave those buildings in those parking lots forever so they can keep the land in case they want to do something with it down the road and they hold the property value and they control that through eminent domain sometimes. And so those corporations are not should not be able to do that. Like if as we move towards greener energy, we should be able to knock down those fucking buildings and put green spaces or put, a distribution warehouse instead of just having an empty shell. Like that is a big part of capitalism is anti-homeless architecture. We have so much concrete and so much bullshit that we just build on top of the earth that serves no purpose other than just providing jobs until they're, not you know, used anymore.
Yeah, building out into, woodland spaces is very, very bad for climate change. I know Phoenix,
Yeah.
the more they build, the hotter they get. That concrete definitely does not be soaking up,
Oh
heat
God.
like plants do. But thank you for having me on,
Hey, yeah,
fun
thanks for
talk.
coming on. Uh,
Dude, it's
Yeah.
always good to it's always good to talk to you, Shark. I've always never had issues with you.
Yeah, yeah, we don't. And don't
I've
be
always liked you.
alarmed. Don't be alarmed. I do have you blocked on Twitter, but that's just because lots of things it's just like yeah, things pop up on my feed. I want to see my friends and my anime girls. So, I do know just about lots of the people that I follow have something to say every time you post. So, that just so you know, it's nothing personal. I have lots of people blocked.
Oh, I don't dude, if look, if you have me blocked on Twitter, I'm not salty about it. I don't care. I know I'm fucking annoying on the bird site, so I understand 100% why you don't want to see my shit.
Yeah, I mean, I just listen. I mean,
You'll see it clipped everywhere anyway, so it doesn't fucking matter. You can't
honestly,
run away
I
from
saw
it.
another one of your tweets after I blocked you, and I was just like, "Damn,
You can't
I
escape
can't
it. You can't
I can't
escape
fucking
genocide
escape."
bad, uwu.
It's actually really bad. I can't escape it. But yeah,
Yeah, you know what? I am so like my account is so thrown in the broad left spectrum. Like I cover the entire left spectrum from like authoritarian tanky to like weird like I don't know, some weird anarchist group. So you always see some dumb shit um from me from some account somewhere, some quote tweet, some bullshit. It never ends. So I'm so sorry that I've done this for everybody. I apologize to everyone in the room that
it's
I
a hell of a
suck.
world we live in. So
Yeah.
take care, everyone. Good
yeah,
night. Sleep well. Thanks for having me on. Take care. All right. God bless. And make sure to wash your taint. Okay,
and
that's
everybody go
important.
follow
Hell yeah,
Sharp
dude.
on
Everyone
YouTube
everyone
and
watch.
on Twitch.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. We just crossed 1,300 subscribers.
That
Wild
is
number.
beautiful. That is a beautiful number. All right, everybody go over there and
Can't wait
add
for
to
you to
those
get to 2K.
numbers.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Love you.
Meow.
So I don't know how long else you want to have me on.
Yeah, I probably
Is
do
there
need to
anything
raid
you
out
wanna?
at some
Is there
point
is there
here.
anything you wanna? Is there anything that anyone wants to ask or wrap up real
Yeah, do we
quick
have any
before
final
we get out of here?
memes?
Any questions? Any
Sorry,
memes?
bad memories, but like any final memes?
Anyone want to type genocide Badoo in chat? Any fun memes on the Daily Mail there?
Oh God, I haven't even. Oh, what is the? Oh God, what is
How
this?
did Mel expect the Vaush convo to go? Oh, I expected it to be absolutely a
Oh
shit
yeah, yeah,
show, like
yeah.
from number one. I never expected the Vaush convo to go well. So
You had some hopes, right? But like, yeah, it wasn't like high probability. Like, I mean, you like that's what I was noticing is that like you were going into it like that there was some chance of it turning into a good conversation, whereas like on the other side there was just it was purely, I guess, drama. I don't know.
I okay, so like I think the practice of Twitch discussion benefits the left if it's productive. If you're just trying to dunk on people, if you're just trying to like push people in a corner to like harass people about shit, um, then it's fucking pointless. Like if we're just gonna sit here and like circle jerk like trans rights or like what like like I think left discussions where it's all leftists shitting on like right wingers. I think that's great. Like I actually love shitting on right wingers, and I think it's funny when people bring me on those like left versus right panels because a lot of people just go. I think everyone in the room just assumes like it sucks 'cause, like I'll go on a left versus right panel, and because I'm the fucking off com authoritarian like tanky whatever commie person. Like everyone in the room kind of hates me. But it's like I'm on the side of the leftists for fuck's sake. Like I don't like Nazis and right wingers and conservatives and transphobes. So it's like really weird that people are like, Mel sucks. And I'm like, I'm on your side, you goobers. Like I know you disagree with shit that I say, but I'm like actually on your side.
Like spicy chat tonight. Jesus Christ. Like I've been reading you,
Well,
okay, spicy chat. Just so you know, I have been reading you. Like I wanted to let like Mel's and Shark's conversation. I didn't really want to break into that even when we got the raids and stuff. But like I definitely have been reading your spicy discourse tonight and enjoying some things and questioning others. And yeah, it's just been a thrill.